Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. She spent years feeding a homeless man, and now 12 Marines in full uniform showed up at her wedding. Emma Collins had always had a big heart, a quality she inherited from her mother, a devoted nurse, and cultivated in her own life with patience and gentleness. When she moved to Charleston, a coastal city with authentic charm, she felt a deep desire to belong to a community, to contribute to something bigger than herself. One autumn morning, as she walked the paths of Washington Park, she saw him for the first time, a man sitting on a worn bench, wrapped in a threadbare old coat. His face was marked by time and hardship, but what struck her most was the undiminished dignity in his eyes, a look that seemed to tell of a life far more complex than appearances suggested. She quickly learned that this man's name was James Turner. At 56, James was a former Marine who had served with honor for years. But the war had taken its toll, a serious combat injury, a difficult return to a society that often seemed to forget those who had given so much, and a string of bad luck that had led him to the streets. Every morning, before starting her day at the public library, Emma walked past this same bench. And every morning, she paused for a moment, took out of her bag a hot coffee, carefully brewed in an old thermos, and a sandwich she had made at home, sometimes fresh bread, grilled chicken, sometimes just peanut butter and jelly, depending on her means and the seasons. This ritual was never imposed or forced. It was a simple gesture, almost modest, but imbued with respect. As the weeks, then months, passed, a sort of tacit bond grew between them, a silent complicity made up of exchanged glances, discreet smiles, and words spoken with modesty. This bond was based on mutual recognition. Emma recognized in James a fellow human being, and James recognized in Emma a glimmer of rare kindness. James was a proud man, very proud. The streets hadn't damaged his dignity or his honor. He categorically refused to be treated like a victim or a charity. Most passers-by either gave him shifty glances or made hasty judgments. But Emma didn't see a homeless man. She saw a man with a story, a brother in arms, a wounded warrior. When they talked, it was never easy. James often remained in the background, preferring silence to pity. Yet, little by little, he began to confide in her fragments of his past. Dangerous missions in Afghanistan, cold nights under the stars, the loss of comrades he had never truly been able to forget. He also spoke of the dull pain of returning to a country that seemed to have turned its back on him, of the invisible scars, of the isolation. Emma always listened to him with genuine attention, never asking overly personal questions, never judging. She simply left a safe space where James could unload his memories, his burdens, without fear of rejection. Emma sat in the small living room of their apartment, surrounded by boxes of decorations, flower samples, and endless lists. Her wedding date was fast approaching, and despite the excitement, she sometimes felt a heaviness in her heart, a mixture of anticipation and worry. Mark, her fiancé, was by her side, patient and attentive. They were discussing the final preparations when her phone rang softly. It was a message from James. Curious, Emma opened the conversation and discovered a photo taken with her old smartphone. A small, worn notebook, its cover marked by time. She knew it well. It was a military logbook, a precious keepsake that James had always kept close to him. But what caught her eye was the handwritten inscription on the back. "Thank you for believing in me. You are my hero." Tears welled up immediately. This simple message, from the man she had helped without ever expecting anything in return, resonated with a deep, genuine, and unexpected gratitude. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She thought back to all those mornings she'd spent bringing him coffee, to those moments of silence shared on that park bench, to James's quiet strength. He was more than a homeless man. He was a man who, despite everything, carried a story of courage and sacrifice. The next day, in the midst of preparations, Emma made an important decision. She wanted James to be present at her wedding, not just as a guest, but as a living symbol of their bond, of that humanity that transcends differences, judgments, and hardships. Mark, who knew James and the history between them well, was immediately touched. "Emma, that's a great idea. But why not take it a step further?" With Mark's help, They contacted Commander Harris, a Marine officer stationed in Charleston. Emma told him James's story, his life shattered by war, his dignity despite the hardships, and Emma's compassion that had supported him all these years. The commander was deeply moved. He immediately understood the significance of the moment. He mobilized 12 Marines in full uniform, tasked with honoring James by participating in the wedding ceremony. The wedding day. On the morning of the wedding, the sun bathed Charleston in a soft, golden light full of promise. The guests gradually arrived, dressed in their finest attire, in an atmosphere of joy and emotion. At the entrance to the church, an unexpected scene unfolded. 12 Marines, impeccably aligned, formed a guard of honor. Their impeccable uniforms shone in the sunlight, their expressions proud and respectful. The surprised guests turned around, whispering to each other, amazed by this display of solidarity. Then the church opened, and James appeared, dressed in his old Marine uniform, clean and neatly pressed, holding Emma's hand. He walked slowly, his gaze straight, his chin raised, embodying honor and restored dignity. Emma felt her heart pound as she walked alongside James, crossing the aisle to admiring glances. That day, as the last rays of sunlight caressed the historic facades of Charleston, the ceremony was about more than Emma and Mark's union. In every glance, every smile, every discreet tear, a larger celebration could be read, one of compassion, respect, and profound gratitude. For James Turner, this moment represented much more than just a wedding. It restored a long-lost dignity, a newfound hope rooted deep within him. Walking down the aisle, surrounded by his brothers in arms, gave him the strength to believe he was no longer alone, that he still mattered, despite the invisible scars of his past. The 12 Marines, proudly lined up in impeccable uniforms, embodied this newfound brotherhood. Their solemn and respectful presence reminded everyone that those who serve deserve to be honored, supported, and never abandoned. They were there to demonstrate that duty does not end at the end of service, but continues in solidarity and gratitude. Among the guests, the magic was working. Families, friends, and strangers were touched by this simple yet powerful human story. Murmurs of admiration, knowing smiles, and sincere handshakes multiplied, weaving an invisible network of goodwill around the couple and James. A shared commitment that goes beyond the ceremony. After the party, in the weeks that followed, Emma, Mark, and James met often to discuss their futures, not only personal, but also collective. They decided to turn this energy into concrete action. Together, they established a local program to support veterans in difficulty, social support, psychological assistance, vocational training, and the creation of meeting and listening spaces. Their initiative, fueled by the story that had touched Charleston, quickly gained visibility. Volunteers flocked, donations were collected, and the local community rallied. This human adventure demonstrated that compassion could become a driving force for profound change, capable of restoring dignity and hope. A symbol of humanity and mutual aid, the story of Emma, James, and Mark became a powerful symbol throughout the city. Local media reported on their journey, inspiring others to take action, to reach out, to look beyond appearances. Schools organized lectures on the importance of solidarity. Churches integrated this message into their sermons, and associations were created, seeking to reproduce this example. Beyond the love between Emma and Mark, this wedding had become an act of humanity, a reminder that every small gesture, every attention paid to another, can change a life, sometimes even several. In the heart of Charleston, the story of James, the rediscovered Marine, and Emma, the woman with a big heart, resonated like an invitation to never forget those who gave, often at the cost of their own peace, and to cultivate together a more just and united future.